And Maggie, you did say to let you know before I start so you can record it. So sorry about that. Thank you very much. All right, everybody, watch the chat area here. Feel free to throw in a question. Today is going to be an overview only, a very brief, generic bird's eye view of Google Analytics. It's an area that my team is all certified in, and we obviously put a lot of value in it. And as we jump into this a little bit, there is a lot to Google Analytics. It arguably is a lot more robust, a lot more reporting, a lot more data than AdWords or any type of other platform. So the things we're going to talk about today are things that are more of a general knowledge that we believe you should be aware of, terms, ideas, common things to look for, etc. And then at the end, one of the biggest points about this is one of the options that you have in your resource center is an analytics deep dive from MediaBeast. So you have a big potential client or a big potential opportunity with a prospect, and they're not quite sure about giving you all of their budget or money. You come back with an analytics look, an audit from MediaBeast, your odds of getting that money is a lot higher, because analytics is something that I would say people in our industry have a very, very small general and generic knowledge of. So we're going to look at a few things, more or less to give you an overview, more or less to give you a little bit of knowledge. And if you have a client or a prospect in general that you're wanting to really dive in for a big opportunity, allow us to read their analytics. And before we dive in too deep, I'll just start off with a quick example of this. I think it was year 2016, I believe, and I just moved back to this market and launched the office here, or started to launch the office here in Charleston. One of the opportunities was Service Master of Charleston, and I was lucky enough with a good VBR to get in to have a meeting with the owner, Lawton. And I asked him about his web presence, and I asked him about his website, and he told me that he was doing incredibly well based off of the latest report that his marketing company had sent him. I said, well, is your business that much up? He goes, no, we're actually down slightly. So, okay, well, does it seem a little odd to you that you're up so much in internet traffic, but down in general? He said, yeah, maybe a little bit. So he ended up, we asked him and we showed him how to, and there is documentation on this that you'll get to, how to have a client add your market, as a reader for read access only to their Google Analytics. And once I did, it showed that he was 500% up year over year in traffic. But when you go a little deeper and you peel that onion back a little bit more, he was down in traffic in South Carolina. He was up in traffic in Oregon, in Chicago, California, New York. Nowhere that he's allowed to service, nowhere that is in his service zone, because a lot of companies would use some very black hat tactics to show fake traffic. They were all robots. So 5 years later, we are obviously still working with 7 different Service Masters, including Service Master of Charleston, because when you show the knowledge and you show the ability to read and understand what's happening with their website and their business, the trust factor goes incredibly up higher. So let's go ahead and move forward, Maggie, with the next slide. Just looking at basically what it is for those of you that may have a little or less knowledge about analytics. It is free. I've heard people ask me before how much does it cost. It is completely free. It is one of the best tools that you can have as a business owner, or really anybody that has a position in marketing that they're responsible marketing for. It's an incredible tool. And Google does offer several tools for websites, but Google Analytics is by far the most robust and deepest one. You can learn so much about your audience and people that are coming to your website. You can learn about their behavior. You can learn how many times does it take for them to actually get to a conversion point. You can set up conversion goals. You can set up events. We'll get through all that here in a minute. But you can learn where your traffic comes from. How often are they likely to convert on this page? Is this page even doing anything for you whatsoever at all? But one of the bigger things that really starts with is going to be basically data collection. So data collection is really what Google Analytics really starts with. So when you look at it for a minute, it is a very broad range of data about the client's website. But more importantly is how people interact with it, how they actually use it. So let's look at a few of these moving forward now. So one of the biggest things about data collection that it will start with is how many visitors your pages actually get. And that's a very, very generic, basic overview, of course, but it's also equally important on where they actually came from. As we just talked about in that example from Google, if you're getting your contact page is one of your highest, for example, traffic and web pages to your website, and nobody is converting, well, might want to look at where they came from. If they're coming from outside the service area, or if they're coming from outside the state even, then even though that contact page might be the second highest visited page, it's to the wrong people. It doesn't matter. And then the next one is going to be basically the behavior, how these visitors progress through the site. It's very, okay, let me back up. So with SEO in general, organic discovery, doing a search by brand name or doing a search by category like water damage restoration in general, there are a lot of websites that have a lot of pages. And typically what you find is that most websites are designed from a graphic designer standpoint. And it's all about aesthetics. It's all about the look. And it's all about them building it with a desktop view, which, if we think about it, it's kind of mind-blowing because about 70% of all traffic is coming in from mobile sites. So it really should be focused on the mobile experience. But if you're finding that people are just getting lost, they're going through page after page after page, and these pages have no conversion points, or these pages don't do a good job explaining why they should interact with you. Because if you think about it, websites really have a few different missions, but the most important one is it's a sales process, is to draw the person there to make contact with that company. That's really the overall number one objective of almost all websites. There's other reasons. There's reasons for a portfolio. People just want to show off their work, just to have it, to show that they're a business. But making contact, that conversion point, is critical. So knowing and understanding how people are interacting inside the website is very important. We have uncovered so many different things over the years that we've had to fix, address, and change, which has dramatically helped their business, their conversion rate, and their website as well. So behavior is very important. Knowing what they do on your pages is also important. So let's say they get to a certain page on your website. Knowing what they're doing on those pages is equally important. All right, next slide, Maggie. How they interact with different elements on your pages. You might have a video you want them to watch to get a brief introduction about your firm, your business, your company. You might have sign up for a newsletter. You might have download this e-paper. Whatever it might be, how they interact with different parts of your website tell you so many things that will allow you to tweak, fix, and optimize it to give that customer or potential customer / visitor a better experience. What about how long visitors spend on your pages? Can anybody, perhaps in the chat, for example, give me an idea about what that really means? What does it mean, and why is it important about how long visitors spend on your pages? There's a term that's really used for what's that describing. Does anybody have an idea about what that is and what I'm referring to?
Is that the bounce rate?
There you go. Who was that?
That's Nick here in Asheville.
Good job, Nick. Good job, Nick. I see Stephanie also answered via chat as well. That is correct. Good job to both of you. That is right. Bounce rate. Now, let me stop there for a minute and feel free to jump back in. There's a two-part to this question. If I have a high bounce rate, is that good or bad?
That's bad. It means people are leaving as soon as they get to the website. It's not loading fast enough, or they're not seeing what they want to see.
Okay. Everybody agree with that? Anybody disagree? In general, that's correct. In general, that's a correct statement. If you have a bounce rate, let's say of 97%, what that means is 3% of everyone that came there did nothing. They didn't go to another page. They didn't download an e-paper. They didn't fill out a contact form. They didn't see what they thought they might see. Their question was not answered. Their problem was not solved. So as a result, they bounced. They left. And it's going to be difficult to get them back because that was more than likely their first impression. Now, when it can be a good thing and work in your favor is if you're running a paid search campaign and they land on the right page that answers the right question and they just call the number. Now, usually they'll click a button, hopefully, to click the call, which would not show that they bounced. It would be an event. But if that's not connected and they just happen to call, then they still did something, but they had a high bounce rate. So in general, that's correct. If your bounce rate is extremely high, that page is not doing something or is not answering something for your clients. All right, Maggie, next. It's also good to know as you look at the user flow throughout the website, where are you losing them? Are you losing them under the About Us page? Are you losing them on the portfolio page? Learning and understanding where they are bouncing and where their exit point is will give you good data as to what you can do on that website to improve it as to lower that bounce rate to increase those conversions at the same time. All right, that's more of a generic, quick overview of it. Now let's talk about, and the word hits, even though that this training from one of Google's partners that they work with on training in general, the word hits isn't used very often anymore, but in this article, you'll see it a few times. Don't worry about the word hits too much. Think about the word hits more about what types of actions does Google Analytics track. All right, next slide, Maggie. All right, a page view. First one, let's talk about a page view. So a page view is sent when someone visits one of your pages. It's pretty much that simple. It tells you the mobile device or desktop device. It'll tell you if you're using Chrome, Safari, whatever it might be. But looking at how many page views a client is getting is just one small piece of the pie. It's not going to give you anything major yet. It's just something to be aware of, which pages have the highest views. Okay, next, Maggie. An event hit. An event is typically an action that you're going to see on the website. It could be they clicked on that video to get a brief introduction about your company or firm. It could be a download. It could be, like I said, the newsletter. Anything like that, an event is good to understand and know so you can understand what your prospect or your visitors are looking for. If they're not ever filling out a download this e-paper, well, that may not be the best element on that actual page. It may not be answering a single question. Next one is more of for e-commerce, which is common, quite a bit, e-commerce, especially after last year in the pandemic. It was the largest Black Friday recorded in history, and I mean so many other stats. So e-commerce is only going to increase more and more. You know, the boomers are more or less the last ones to migrate to shopping with a good bit of money online. But that's changed now ever since 2020. Okay, next slide, Maggie. Let's get that one to user data. So page view and then somewhat user data. Looking at visitors to your site as well as looking at, there's one called users, and there's one right beside it called new users. A new user is someone that hasn't been there before. Google Analytics uses cookies, so they're tracking you as you come to the website and where you go after the website. So page views, user data. Next one is session data. A session is somebody, a visitor, was actively on your website. I believe it's more than 20 seconds or 30 seconds. But session data, they're spending a period of time on your website. So you have page view, you have users / new users, and you have session data. Next, reports menu. And we're going to talk about how to use this here at the end of the call. So there's a whole lot of different reports, custom reports, that you can actually use inside of Google Analytics. One that we don't use that much, but to be aware of it, one is called real time. You can actually look and see how many people are on your website at any given time live. Anybody have any idea about how they would use data that shows real time? When you look at data on real time, you get a pretty good idea of how many people are really active at any given moment on that website. Not that it's like average quarter hour, 15-minute snapshots. It's not like that. It's more of, if you're looking at during a very busy time during the day, that, for example, Hargrave Communications should be very active on their website. If you see 15 people that are live and active on that website at that time, you start to get some idea about when to really market that website, when to really send traffic to that website. But again, it's one of those small tools that doesn't really show you too much by itself. The next one, and we're going to look at this live here in a minute. I'll probably have Maggie give me control of the computer here in a minute. But audience, number 2. Learning about your audience. You can get, and just keep in mind, don't get lost in the weeds here trying to look at demographics in Google Analytics, because a big portion of data happens to go under a category called Other. And typically that means people were signed in to their Gmail account somewhere, so that data won't be reported. So I don't spend too much time and don't put too much weight on the demographic makeup of the audience, because it does factor in employees going to the website. It factors in current customers, people that are trying to sell to them. So I don't put too much weight in the audience under demographics, but there are other sections that I'm going to show you about here in a minute that I do under audience. So under reporting, you have real time, you have audience, and the next one is acquisition. We do spend a pretty good amount of time under acquisition here. You might have an idea of what that's referring to. Acquisition is a pretty big one. It'll tell you channels traffic is coming from. Is it coming from organic search? Is it coming from people typing in Hargrave.com? Or is it people typing in internet service providers near me through organic discovery? Is it coming from a paid display campaign? Yes, that's trackable. Is it coming from search, social media, Facebook? Is it coming from an email blast? All of that information is actually, in our view, very critical. It will show what happens on the website. Did they convert? Did they spend time on the site? Did they do anything? And where that traffic came from. And you start to figure out, this is one of the ways that we were able to acquire Hargrave Communications. Maggie, how much money collectively between business and residential are they spending right now?
You're close to $90,000 per month.
Between 90 and a month, they do heavy ups, 120. Now, they had a company that was a very, very large ad agency that had the account for a few different years prior to us going in there. And the way that we did it was we showed them what was really happening with their campaigns. We showed them that their display campaign that another company was running for them was all coming from Atlanta, Georgia, all of it. All $50,000 a month in display. Had nothing to do with Beaufort, Bluffton, Hilton Head, Bell City, any of their markets. It was all, so basically the agency was buying way outside of their service area. So acquisition showed what campaigns were they buying. It also showed their paid search campaigns. It showed all the other company was doing was buying Hargray's name. You don't want to do that with paid search because they're going to find you organically if they search Hargray. That's sort of cheating the system. You should be buying ads or buying keywords about internet service provider. So acquisition is one that we spend a pretty good amount of time in. Stephanie, what's your question on overall results? Were you responding to the question about acquisition? Okay. Yes. The answer would be yes overall. Acquisition, I mean, there's not one particular section in analytics that will always give you the full answer, but acquisition, by going through that section, will typically give you the answer the fastest. You'll get to what you're looking for typically the fastest under acquisition. Okay. We'll look at this live here in a minute. Let's jump right into the next one, which is behavior. So with behavior, you're learning and discovering how people are behaving, like we talked about earlier, where they're going on the website, where their bounce rate is, their page view, how long they're spending on the website, etc. And then the last one is conversions. Arguably the most important one, because everything that we just said before this really, to a point, can be irrelevant if you are not tracking conversions. You'd be stunned to see the number of analytic accounts that we audit or that we take over from another firm that don't have goal setups, which, knowing what we know and what you're going to be learning and understanding over the next couple of weeks, it'll probably blow your mind too. Like, what's the point of sending traffic to a website if you don't know what you want them to do, or if you're not tracking what you want them to do? A conversion is any type of contact between the person visiting the website and the business. What forms could that be in? Feel free to answer in the chat box. What types of communication can you have on a website between a visitor and the business? What are some examples? If you want to give out one verbally, feel free to do so. Chat, that's correct. Chat is a good one. If you have live chat on your website, that was actually one thing that Reach Local, my former company, years ago, would make sure that they really pushed for newer salespeople. They would always talk about it is a conversion point. There's already built in, to some degree, traffic coming to this client's website. By putting chat on the website, it's more or less a pay per lead opportunity, and it is manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's a response guide that the client fills out of what the chat person can and cannot say, but the whole point of it is lead generation, and it works if it's the right company. So a conversion can be a chat, absolutely. It can be an email. Thank you. Good job, Charleston. It can be an email chat. It can be a form. It can be a click to call. It can also be a purchase. I'm not sure who viewer 9 is, but that is correct. It can be a purchase. Request a quote. Any type of a contact is a conversion point, and any type of a transaction is also a conversion point. But when you look at analytics, or if you had MediaBeast do an analytics study on a prospect for you, what you get back is 99% of the time more information that's easy to read and understand about that website than the client, the owner, even knows about their own business. And that has been an incredible selling point for us, just like I mentioned with Hargray. When you are able to show, and this is what, again, we do for you, I'm not expecting you guys to become analytic experts. That's not the point. The point is to be able to understand what we tell you when we do an analytic study for you. That's what the point of all this is. And I want you to get lost in the weeds when you have a basic understanding, and then we'll give you the points that you need to deliver to the client. So that's what a conversion is. Good job. So advance 2 slides, Maggie. This is a screenshot of exactly what real-time looks like. It's, like I said, it's pretty basic. This is Hargray, actually, and I think it was late last night, but they had 32 people on their site last night. And there's a few things you can get in the woods, but again, it's a quick snapshot. It's like having one average quarter-hour report for the whole month. It's not anything to rest your sales efforts on, really. So we have a question from Stephanie. If the client does not have analytics set up, to MediaBeast assist in client with the process? 100%. And Stephanie, it's actually a great prospecting tool too. And there are several ways that you can determine if a client has Google Analytics on their website. Can anybody give me one of those ways? There you go, Stephanie. Good job. Absolutely. If you are on the Resource Center and you happen to run an SEO Optimer on either the last page or next to the last page, it'll tell you if Google Analytics is on the website or not. You can also take your mouse and right-click your mouse while you're on a client's website and click on View Source, View Page Source, and then all the code will pop up on a different tab. And just hit Control or Command F on a Mac and type in the word analytics, and you will see if it's on there or not. Now, back to your question, Stephanie. 100% yes, and I encourage that. If you see a client does not have analytics on their website, I think you're starting to see they should. Otherwise, you are flying/they are flying blind. How can they truly measure any marketing effort if there's no data collection, if there is no reporting and no knowledge about what happens after somebody lands there? It's crazy to think about, but it happens all the time. I think the number is about 67% of websites have analytics on there. But that does not mean they all do, of course. And if they do not, we are 100% easily done to send you a code to put on their website with instructions, or even better, you get access to that prospect's website. We'll do it for you. If they give you access to their website to put analytics on there, you are in good for the next round of conversations with them about marketing. All right, let's take a look at the audience overview on 2 slides later. So after real time, I mentioned audience and overview. Here, you usually get the last 30 days, unless you change the dates in the upper right-hand corner. It usually defaults to the last 30 days or whatever the person that was in analytics last had it set to. So make sure you always check your dates. And as you can see on the left side, again, just to reinforce, you do not have to learn this. You more have to understand it. So when we go through reporting with you, you'll be able to communicate that with the client. So audience overview. Here, you see users, you see new users, you see bounce rate, and you can get into sessions and get lost in the weeds. Number of sessions per user, there is no magic formula as to what that should be. Typically, it's 2 to 3 pages, but again, I would not get lost in the weeds there at all. So real time, and then audience overview just gives you a snapshot of users, sessions, bounce rates, new versus returning. Let's take a look at a an actual one here. If you can go to the next slide here, Maggie. All right. Everybody take a look at the screen for a minute. This is an audience overview. If you look at the upper right-hand corner, you will see the dates January 1st through March 31st of this year compared to the same time frame of last year, right before COVID. Somebody tell me if this is good or bad. Just based off of what you're seeing. Stephanie says good. Anybody agree? Anybody disagree? Charlton says good. Anybody disagree? All right, so we're looking at users and new users. I typically, that is correct. Users and new users are up. So this is what ServiceMaster showed me too. But that number you're looking at, where it says users 73%, when you look at that, ServiceMaster said 561% up. So if you saw a website that said 561% up, they should be quite up in business as well. But you got to go a little deeper than that, which I'll show you here in just a minute. Yeah, that bounce rate is out of control, as you can see. And a lot of that, I believe, was due to e-commerce, but I have not dove in to investigate that, but that would definitely be a red flag as to what on earth is going on. It looks like their bounce rate this year is 34%, and the year before that was 2%. But if it's that low, were people ever finding what they were really looking for? And that does happen quite often as well. Click after click after click, lost. They cannot find what they're looking for, whether it be a remodeling client looking for remodeling ideas or somebody looking for internet for their business and just not being able to find it. So in general, that's typically a good thing to see users and new users up, but we don't know where they came from yet. What if they came from Atlanta? A lot of times what you'll find are marketing companies will buy any type of search, display, programmatic, social media, email marketing that doesn't include the client service area because it's cheaper to not. And nobody ever looks. Nobody ever checks because typically people don't know how to, especially the business owner. So at first glance, it looks good, but you are nowhere near done to tell a client that, and neither are we. At first glance, it looks good, but if it's not, if it's fake traffic, if it's bots, there's so many things that factor into that. But when I first look at that, I'm like, all right, it looks like their traffic is up over last year. Now let's find out why. So let's start looking at where traffic is coming from on a geo location. All right, next slide. And this is the next slide under geolocation. What cities are up? I apologize. What states? What states are up? You see, number one, South Carolina. Well, what state has the most new users? It's actually not South Carolina. It's Georgia. But which state is performing the best? Look at the third green box. That should have all goal completions. Typically, the way this is going to rank for you, it's going to be ranked typically on sessions, users, or new users. One of those three will be the default and how they rank the actual states. And the good news is, that's correct. Good job, Stephanie. It is Georgia. When you click into a state like South Carolina or click into a state like Georgia, you'll be able to see what cities are up. Maggie, how often do you do this for American Integrity Insurance?
Every time we do reporting for them. So during their weekly reporting as well as a deep dive during their monthly reporting. We're going in here to see how much traffic, because they're specifically in Florida, how much of the traffic's coming from Florida, and then within Florida, what cities the majority of the traffic's coming from, as well as the goal completions.
Thank you, Megan. Yeah, we've worked with these guys now for 5 or 6 years, and it's one of those conversations that Tony, the director of marketing out of Florida, literally calls us her partner. She left us a 5-star review on Google, and it's because of the effort Maggie and team and her deep analytic knowledge and study of analytics. She knows the growth areas and the growth area goals by campaign. We ask the client, tell us the key areas that are important for growth. So we analyze that data by looking at the geolocation. Where are they coming from? Are they up or down? And what's the result? Why are they up or down? Is it coming from our efforts in SEO and paid, etc.? All right, let's jump back to acquisition for a minute. So acquisition is just that. You've looked at the locations. Now let's see what metric or what tactic or source or channel, they're all the same, what's bringing that traffic to be up overall and by state? What's causing it? All right, so number one, you see direct. Direct is just when someone will type in the client's URL or search for the client's URL in their search bar. They type in hargray.com because they go there all the time. This would probably more than likely include employees, staff members, vendors, contractors, anyone that does a lot of interaction with them, including current customers as well. You can also get a pretty good idea about how well branded they are. If you see direct is not in position 1 or 2, that means that the website is more than likely surviving or thriving off of campaign efforts for discovery. So when you don't see a huge number in direct, it doesn't mean they don't have a brand. It just makes you start to think, well, is there a branding opportunity here as well? Because there's not a lot of direct traffic coming in all the time. Most of our clients have a pretty good amount of direct traffic. Number 2, and you should see organic 1 or 2 almost always. Organic search, they could spell Hargray wrong. They could be typing in internet service provider. They could be typing in, and Hargray is spelled wrong all the time. So is American Integrity, believe it or not. In fact, one of the most popular words in search in general that is misspelled, I believe it's either number 1 or number 2, is the word plumber, which is really kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, that plumber is misspelled that much in our country. Plummer it's kind of mind-blowing, but I don't know what that says, a better education system, but that is the most common misspelled word in search is plumber without a V. You see number 3 is display advertising. Display advertising is the third one. And if anybody ever tells me that display cannot convert, well, you can clearly see that's wrong. Display can also factor in with remarketing. Remarketing is when someone comes to the client website, they don't convert, they leave, and they could be top funnel, middle funnel, who knows. But remarketing was a tactic that was almost required by ReachLocal for every single campaign. If you think about it, it makes sense. You are spending money to bring people to a website in whatever means it is, right? And if they don't convert, it shouldn't be game over. You should bring them back. You should encourage them to come back. So if done properly, and we love a good remarketing campaign, because a good remarketing campaign with good creative, giving them a reason to re-engage, is smart. It's low cost. It keeps them in the funnel. And it'll go under display in this section. If you look at campaigns, it'll be broken out. So as you can see here for Hargray, paid search is not in the top 4 or 5. You see direct is, followed by organic, followed by display, and then other could be several things that don't have a campaign name to it. Okay, let's look at campaigns as I just talked about, and let's stay under acquisition. So the next slide says, I'm going to pause here for a minute. I want you guys to tell me what campaigns are performing the best. And I want to make sure that you guys know that if you see IH in front of them, some of those have changed to us, but we have been taking over virtually all of the digital marketing from Hargrave. There were still some internal campaigns that they were running, and they named them IH in front. The ones that MediaBeast runs has the letters MB in front. Can somebody tell me which campaigns are doing the best for Hargrave? Just by looking at the screen right now. Is it their internal efforts? Is it their campaigns? Is it Facebook? What campaigns are doing the best? Who has an idea? It's kind of a trick question because this is ranking it off of users. So you're looking at the users, and it looks like in-house campaigns that they are running were doing the best. But again, if you go back to what I said 10 minutes ago, what is the overall goal of everything coming to a website? You want them to do what? To convert or make contact. So what happens if I go to the far right and I click on goal completions and I rank campaigns by goal completions, not by fake traffic? If you go to the next slide, Maggie. Oh, I need to get control of the screen real quick. Let me take over control and we will go live and look at this together. Maggie, if you can keep an eye on the chat box for me as well. All right. All right, somebody tell me what you see now. If I click on, take a look at the IH, and you will see there's a MediaBeast one. Looks like MediaBeast is not in the top campaigns. We don't believe in fake traffic. Now look at it. When I rank it by conversions, goals, chats, phone calls, forms, now what do you see? You'll see less traffic.
Results.
More, absolutely. You will see efficiency. You will, and if I were to go in and look at the source medium, it'll tell you, now these happen to be the paid search campaigns, as you can see. And this is actually for Hargrave. And this is all about acquisition, leads, contacts, phone calls, people that are actually interested. Now, you see your first one right here for in-house. And what is it? What type of campaign is this? Google search and Google display both go under Google CPC. If I do the source medium of campaign type, it would say display, search, search. This is a display campaign that is remarketing that they are using. This is virtually the only efficient one that they are running correctly. So as you can see,
Good job,
even though
Stephanie,
they get
on
called.
that.
What's that?
Stephanie said retargeting. Great job, Stephanie.
Oh, good job, Stephanie. That's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Very good. So as you can see, knowing a little bit more than the average person about this is critical. You start looking in detail what's causing or what is actually happening on the actual website. And without getting into too much detail, let's stay under acquisition here for a minute, and let's look at Google Ads. Now, when I look at Google Ads, I'm sorry, not Google Ads, let's look at source medium. So acquisition, traffic, we saw earlier that direct and organic was number one. Under users, if I were to rank it under goal completions, I would expect to see more than likely direct and organic leading. This is a company that has several markets and has been around for quite some time. So they have a lot of internet phone customers for residential, and they're growing in business. If you rank it under goal completions, you will typically see something very similar to this with our campaigns. You will see direct and none, good brand, everyone's very aware of them. Organic, typically discovery right here, and Google paid search for us right here as well. And that's a pretty good looking mix of traffic. Look at what happened with their goal completions since last year. Aggressively going after conversion points, aggressively changing how things are presented on their website, understanding analytics to move them faster to the point of contact is critical. Result, almost 4 times up in goal completions. Let me pause for a minute to make sure everybody is on the same page. And Maggie, if you can watch the chat box for me. I don't want to get too deep, but are there any questions on audience or acquisition so far? Okay, let's look at another example and another company here. Let's pull up American Integrity Insurance that you heard Maggie just talk about a second ago. Let's pull that one up. And I want you guys to tell me what you're seeing. This the one right here, Maggie? Is this the right one?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. We're going to look at this year versus last year. Again, we've handled this client for, this is either the 5th or 6th year. So you're not going to see 500% up every year because it was us doing it the year before that and the year before that as well. But first glance, looking at first quarter this year versus first quarter last year. And I'll tell you, they're having some big challenges in Florida with homeowners insurance policies. There's some lawsuits going on, which has caused rates to skyrocket. So they have a good bit of challenges. But somebody tell me what you see on first glance. What source or medium, this column, seems to be performing the best for them? You see direct and none. Go ahead.
Stephanie says organic.
If you're looking at goal completions, I would agree completely, Stephanie. Over here, what Stephanie's talking about right here, when you're looking, comparing first quarter of this year over first quarter of last year, at first glance, you start seeing direct and none is up 6%. Okay, that's 6% up, more or less almost flat over last year with people that are going to their website, brand in general. Google organic, you look at new users, there's 30,000 new users we've had in first quarter this year versus 24,000 new users in first quarter last year. But the result, what Stephanie's talking about, the result of that is these 30,000 new users yielded 1,900 goal completions, or people asking for homeowners insurance quotes or phone calls or find an agent, versus 1,600 of that last year, which represents, if you look at this, 40% of all of their goal completions are coming from organic and 45 from direct. So brand is very important to them. And that's something that I want to make sure everybody understands, is that brand is going to be and should be critically important to almost every client. People are going to search 2 ways, by brand or by category, period. If it's well branded, You should see something like that with direct. And it's converting very well, and that's a big portion of their business in goal completions. 45, almost half of them are coming from brand or people going to their website because they know their website. Google Organic accounts for another 40%. And it's such a high volume of people. I mean, look at that. It's such a high volume of people as well. Now, let's look at campaigns. What campaigns for American Integrity are working the best? It's hard to tell so far, isn't it? You don't know what these campaigns are. So let's make it a little bit easier by doing the source and medium. Okay, tell me what you see. And Maggie, I guarantee you're probably laughing as you're seeing this slide. So I know exactly what you're thinking and who's doing this. The things that we don't handle for this account, it's another actual agency that doesn't do digital. They happen to do their email and Facebook. At first glance, you're looking at, whoa, that is a ton of users and new users coming in from email marketing, which it can, absolutely. And then you start looking at Facebook, and you start
Stephanie
to see people coming. Yep.
Stephanie's looking at the bounce rate, and she said that the second campaign has the lowest bounce rate, so it's performing the best, considering that we don't have many goal completions to look at.
There are 214 goal completions overall from campaigns, so let's rank them by campaigns to get a little bit better visual. Now, what do you see? Keep going, Stephanie. You're on a roll. What do you see now? What campaigns are performing the best now? You're seeing the marketing efforts, one that Maggie oversees as well, and you see that the paid efforts that we were just looking at, email, Facebook, the two that we honestly do not handle, compared to Google search and display that we do handle. This is where attribution also comes in. During our monthly recap calls with clients, we are making sure they know this is from your efforts. We're making sure they know proper goal setup, proper event setup, proper understanding of analytics and tracking, and understanding and breaking that data down and delivering it to your client in a very easy to read platform. Not this, but you have to understand it a little bit before you can just go over it with a client. When we show them your efforts that we're doing for you are resulting in this, we also show them the lead sheets, the phone calls. We make sure they know that the efforts that you're putting into it, that my team's putting into it, is actually working, and we are tracking it properly. And typically, they'll never leave you. And you really can't hide from analytics. Either you are understanding of it and can break it down, or you're like everybody else and just take it for face value. But understanding it and understanding the reporting that we're going to be giving you, we'll do this again next week, is very, very critical, because this is where the big dollar opportunities are, like a Hargrave or a franchise, a big franchise. Being able to decipher data, again, this is not expected of any of you, just to be able to understand our reporting on it, which we'll get to next week. Okay, with 5 minutes left, do we have any questions from the audience at all, anywhere? All right, so a couple of just quick takeaways. Being able to understand the overall generic terms and understanding of what Google Analytics is, understanding about visitors that the website gets, understanding where they come from, understanding how they interact, their behavior through the website, understanding what pages people are interacting or spending the most time on. Understanding how they interact with different elements on the pages, i.e. could be bounce rate. Starting to figure that out and understanding why. Knowing how long they spend on those pages of your website. Where are they when they leave and exit your website? Understanding what a page view is to what an event is. And you guys will all get this deck as well. Understanding what a conversion is in general. Knowing users versus new users, a session, and the reports menu on the left that you saw, understanding real-time versus audience and overview. And again, the audience overview just gives you some very basic info, users, bounce rate, sessions, acquisition. What I find to be the most important section of analytics is acquisition, conversions, and then understanding that when you are looking at data, for example, under audience overview or under acquisition, understanding that it's going to be ranking them by users. And that's where a lot of fake traffic, a lot of bots, a lot of black hat tactics, and clients don't know any better. Oh, I'm up in traffic. No, you're up in fake traffic. There's 0.2 seconds being spent on all that traffic on your website. Bots happen all the time with not real people. So again, there's a lot to this to understand, but that's our job. So on the Resource Center, on your resource page, you can request an analytic audit on any client from us. The only requirement is that we have to have analytics access. And if you need more info on that, Maggie, they can find that sheet on the Resource Center as well about how to get analytic access, correct?
Yeah, there's a one sheet that you can send your clients that has the email address on it. There's also a how-to guide if your clients need a little bit more direction on where to go inside of Google Analytics to be able to grant that access.
Okay, Stephanie, do you have a question before we close? Go ahead, Stephanie.
She has a meeting on Monday with a client who doesn't have analytics set up yet.
Okay, so Stephanie, if you simply just send us the domain, we can set up analytics for you, and then we can send you the code and the instructions for the client to set it up. All right, well, we are 48 seconds early in closing. I hope you guys got some good basic intel here, understand it. Again, not to be an expert in it, just to have a general knowledge and allow us to do that work and heavy lifting for you. Hope you guys had a great week this week. Have a great Friday and a great weekend.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, bye, guys.